This episode is brought to you by Mubi, a global streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema. Starting today, you can catch the streaming premiere of The Substance. Demi Moore delivers a career-best performance as an A-lister past her prime, transformed by a mysterious drug into a gorgeous 20-something played by Margaret Qualley. It's a deliriously entertaining and spine-tingling masterpiece, and you can start streaming The Substance and more for 30 days free at Mubi.com/CityCast. Today on CityCast Portland, we're looking into the ballot box arsons, the many ways the city is fumbling our tax dollars, and why the sheriff's office is warning the county they could start releasing prisoners as early as next week. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Willamette Week City Hall reporter Sophie Peel and our very own executive producer, John Notarianni. It's Friday, November 1st. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Sophie, John, thank you for hanging out with me this morning.
Hey, Claudia.
Good morning.
For those of you new to the show, glad you're here. Today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists in town. But before we jump into the news, I usually ask an opening question so our listeners can get to know our guests a little better. And since we are a daily podcast, there's a possibility you're still catching up on all of the shows this week. So John and I are going to quickly fill you in on what you missed.
Yeah, this week, mayoral madness. We continued our series of interviews with mayoral candidates. On Monday, we revisited our chat with Liv Ostis, aka Viva Las Vegas, talking about her plans to change the narrative in Portland. Then on Tuesday, we spoke with Commissioner Carmen Rubio. And on Wednesday, we heard from Keith Wilson about why ending unsheltered homelessness could be his first priority as mayor.
Yeah, also at the top of each candidate interview, John joined me to bring us all up to speed with all that's happened in the race since we last spoke with the candidates this summer. So if you're just catching those now, last week we also aired our convos with Commissioner Renee Gonzalez and Commissioner Mingus Maps. So this week was pretty much nonstop mayoral interviews, or mayoral madness, as you said.
A lot of mayors this week, except for yesterday when we put out our monthly November guide. So once a month, we come on, tell everybody about like what we think some of the greatest stuff to do in the upcoming month is. And it's probably one of our most listened to shows. And it's really fun. We go over events and food ideas and like hacks for the month. Claudia, you bullied me about how I've never gone to Huber's. That was fun.
Oh my God. Okay, one, you're the one who told us about that. Like, no one bullied you. You were just like, you literally came out, you're like, don't bully me, but I've never been to Huber's. What do you think is going to happen?
We'll let the listeners decide. We'll let the listeners decide, Claudia.
Oh my God. Okay, so all this brings me to the opening question. Last Friday, the gang and I hosted our very first members-only event at Slim's, which was super fun. Sophie, we decided that we'll invite you to the next one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't recall getting an invite to that. Interesting.
We have had a contributors-only party. Now we've had a members-only party. Next one, it's going to be members and contributors. It'll be super fun. And not only did we get to confirm that all of our members are super smart and attractive, we also just got to know them a little better. And one of our members, Greg, is part of this really wonderful community funding organization called the Awesome Foundation, which I never heard of, but it has chapters worldwide. And every other month, Greg and 11 other trustees award a Portlander or a Portland organization $1,000 for whatever project they're working on, like literally anything that uplifts or contributes to Portland being more awesome. So my question to you both is, if the Portland chapter Awesome Foundation gave you each $1,000, no questions asked, to fund something that would positively impact our community, what would you use it for and why? And I could go first if you needed some time. But John, it looks like you already know.
Yeah, the stag sign, like right when you're getting into downtown. Let's give it a little cowboy hat. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I mean, it would not be awesome.
I feel like you didn't put a lot of thought into that, John.
Well,
That was not your best work.
Oh my God. Okay, Sophie, what's
all
yours?
right, Sophie. Let's see what you got, Sophie.
I'm
Okay,
taking
well,
time.
okay,
I'm really thinking about
Let me
this.
give you mine. If you guys need to do a take two, John, or maybe you'll find reasons why the hat is even awesomer. Okay, so I would take the $1,000, give it to Human Access Project, and ask Willie to help create a dragon boat team outpost in St. John's. Maybe just a locker for our, kayaks and stuff, because Cathedral Park got its new swimming dock and the beach is getting even more accessible. More people are wanting to hang out down there. And now that it's too cold to swim, you can still get on the water with a boat. So I would just give my money to Willie and be like, help.
I'm just ready for Sophie to dazzle us.
I love that you did not listen to one word I said.
He's just waiting.
You've been waiting for Sophie to say something better than a little hat on a stag. I wonder if she can do so. Go on, Sophie.
Well, first of all, I think John should be asked to repeat what you just said, Claudia, because I'm also dubious that he was listening.
Dragon boat locker.
Okay. Well, okay. I do think mine is better than a cowboy hat, but not by much. So I know running clubs are a really big thing in Portland. And I've always wanted to be a part of a running club, but I don't like running. So I would like someone to set up a fast walking club.
Have you ever seen a fast walker?
Well, not that fast.
Medium pace.
Just slightly faster than your normal walk.
But not a speed walker.
Yeah, not quite. Like a 13-minute mile.
I think that's called the Lloyd Center.
Yes, and I want events to exclusively be held in the Lloyd Center.
Okay. So
Sophie wants a mall walking club. I don't know. I think a cowboy hat's a little bit more awesome than that.
Look, they both suck.
Okay, I guess Greg's not awarding any of us $1,000. Well, thank you for your answers. I thought they were all really good, in my opinion. I'd also just want to shout out that if you have a project you want to apply to Awesome Foundation for funding, we're going to throw that link in our show notes. And they're currently looking for trustees as well, so you can help decide who gets a little hat on their head every other month, where you can walk funny with a bunch of other people. All right, on to the news of the week. John, you're going first this time around because you've been following the ballot box arsons. So what's the latest? I saw that the national outlets have picked it up as well.
Yeah, I've been mostly following reporting by OPB, Oregonian, and the New York Times on this. Definitely has become a national story. So for anybody who's been living under a rock, on Monday early morning, there were a couple of fires at ballot boxes across the region. One at the Multnomah County Elections Office in Portland, and one at the Fisher's Landing Transit Center in Vancouver, set off with incendiary devices. In Portland, a couple ballots were damaged, but in Vancouver, nearly 500 were damaged or destroyed. The FBI is looking into it. Clark County and Multnomah County are now saying that they're doing 24/7 monitoring of ballot boxes. But obviously this is a really big deal because going into this election, there's so much concern about election stability. I think that there's been a lot of bluster about election security and of making sure that the election is not rigged. The FBI and the local police are looking into what happened here. They believe that it was a white male who was 30 to 40 years old with short or balding hair, a thin to medium build, a thin face, and believed to have metal fabrication and welding experience, which is an interesting detail. I think that comes down to the devices that were used to start the fires. Mm-hmm. They're also looking for a Volvo, an S60 specifically, probably between 2001 and 2004.
So I know this isn't a funny story, and I'm not saying it is, but the Oregonian, their story, I think it was by Zane Sparling. So we were in our news meeting at Willamette Week, and I read Zane's subhead, and it said something to the effect of the suspect is a thin-faced, balding man who thin build. And I just looked to we all looked to my left at Lucas Manfield.
Fellow Willamette Week reporter, yeah.
Because it just fit the description so beautifully. It was just I don't know. There's a lot of thin-faced, thin build men between 30 and 40. Like, geez, I can think of 10 right now.
I do want to note that the authorities also connected those two arson acts with a third incident on October 8th when officials in Vancouver removed a suspicious device that did not blow up in a ballot drop box. No damage had resulted from that incident, but they're connecting them all.
Yeah. And like, in terms of the similarities, there have been Free Gaza markings on all of the incendiary devices. The third device that was found in Vancouver had a Free Palestine message on it. So that's another reason why they're looking at these things as linked.
I will say the New York Times reported that. The Oregonian reported that. The New York Times reported that from anonymous sources. The Washington Post, very interestingly, did not back them up on that. The Washington Post reported, this is a quote, "The suspect's motives are unclear," said Assistant Chief Amanda McMillan of the Portland Police Bureau. "What acts like this are targeted and intentional." And that's all they wrote about that.
Yeah, and we talked about it in our news meeting as well, Claudia. Like, we are in such a sort of like hyperventilatingly hyperbolic moment right now with this election right around the corner that like we do want to be really careful of saying definitively this is like what happened one way or another, especially because there have been discussions, at least sort of floating online, of doing sort of like false flag election interference type acts of, sort of disguising as ideological opponents. So there's a lot about this that we just don't know yet. But it is raising headlines, There was a giant letter that was put out by the Metro Chamber that was signed by like 75 local officials and groups. Did you see this?
No.
Yeah. So, signed by Senators Merkley and Wyden, Governor Kotek, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler, basically just urging everyone to have a peaceful election. It stressed the importance of distinguishing constructive protest from harmful actions, which also is sort of, to me, sounds like a message saying, please, please, please don't have like big crazy protests in the street where you damage things. Please don't do that. Which, I don't know who is going to be swayed by an open letter from Ron Wyden.
Yes,
but
exactly.
They're putting that messaging out there, which I think is striking.
I'm not sure, Antifa people are going to, if Renee Gonzalez tells them not to protest, that they're going to, that might have the opposite effect.
No.
Okay, I do want to point out, though, that the Oregon Republican Party is using this as a moment to point fingers. They were like, well, this is another reason to support a return to paper ballots and in-person voting. And then the Washington State Republican Party said local Democrats had acted too late and had done too little in the wake of such incidents. But I find both statements confusing because, one, how are the Democrats supposed to act any faster? Also, it's not like the Republicans are in some high tower just looking down at things happening. They're also part, of like any kind of policy making or whatever. But also, mail-in voting was actually pushed by Republicans and Democrats alike in Oregon in the spring. Just a reminder.
It was their idea.
Yeah. In the spring of 1995, both chambers of the Oregon Legislative Assembly approved this proposal, and it was actually vetoed by a then newly elected governor, a Democrat, John Kitzhaber. So the only reason the conversation was even started in Oregon was because a Republican county, Lynn County, was paving the way for vote by mail. So I don't know. I don't understand all this hate, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, just sort of like housekeeping details on this. If you are one of the people who dropped a ballot in Vancouver on Monday, the Clark County Elections Office is saying, please reach out. They're working really hard to get replacement ballots to people. Also, the Portland Police Bureau is asking for help locating the suspect and vehicle. Go to crimestoppersfororegon.com and let them know if you have a tip. You can tip anonymously there. And I think the other thing is just like, be sure to get your ballots in and try and do it early if you can. We have been seeing a sort of lower turnout so far this year than we had seen at the same time in 2020. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them being that there are new rules. You can postmark your ballot by 8 p.m. on election day, and it'll still get counted. But at the same time, the Multnomah County Elections Office says if you can get it in early, like that does help because they can start actually opening them and tabulating the votes ahead of time. They're not going to release them until election day. But yeah, it could help. Do your little part to avoid a logjam at the very end of having 1 million ballots coming in, and get it in this weekend if you can.
Also, I just want to say that our voting system contributes to the highest in the nation rate of voter turnout.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to shout out vote by mail, just as a reminder. Hey guys, it's actually really cool that we get to do this. That's all.
Vote by mail.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, more headlines of the week. Hey, Portland, do you know who you're voting for? If you're still researching your options, the League of Women Voters has a ton of resources to make voting easier for you. You can find reliable, nonpartisan, free information at lwvpdx.org, like videos and podcasts of candidate interviews. There's also balanced explanations of ballot measures. And this week, the League is also sponsoring a walk-in voter information table at the Community for Positive Aging at 1820 Northeast 40th Avenue. Volunteers will be there on Tuesday, October 29th and Thursday, October 31st from noon to 3 p.m. And also on Tuesday, November 4th from 1 to 3 p.m. Stop by to get help with using a ranked choice ballot or go to lwvpdx.org or vote411.org to learn more about the candidates and measures.
Why is Laura Stribe running for Portland City Council in District 2? Because Laura believes Portland is about community. She's lived in St. John's for over 20 years. It's about connection. Laura has been committed to advancing the arts, education, and listening to community. And it's about collaboration. Laura will work with folks to get things done. Laura is hopeful with the new charter reform and ranked choice voting that Portland can enter a new era of representation, investment in community, and fiscal responsibility. Arts and culture is what keeps our economy going and our city vibrant. Safety and affordability is what we demand for all Portlanders to ensure our neighbors can thrive and live with dignity. Our planet needs a green lens going forward as we upgrade our infrastructure and prepare for forthcoming natural disasters. Together, we can create a Portland to be proud of. Vote this November and rank Laura Stribe #1 for Portland City Council in District 2. Paid for by Friends of Run Laura Run.
Okay, Sophie, what are you bringing us this week?
So this week, I'm going to talk about sort of twin stories that I think highlight the city of Portland's inefficiencies, and I think really more than anything showcase how our current form of government, and I don't want to blame everything on our current form of government because it also has a lot to do with leadership, but how our current form of government, which we're about to get rid of, leads to just a sort of a lot of inefficiencies and duplication. So the city auditor this week released an audit that showed the city has basically inefficiently spent money on various technology programs and software programs. Most troubling is sort of the duplicative spending that has been an issue on several occasions. The audit pointed to like one really interesting and sort of troubling instance where the city had purchased a $300,000 program to manage sort of city devices. And then soon after, they purchased another one for $700,000 to basically do the same exact thing. And that's, I know for the city of Portland, like that amount of money is sort of small potatoes, but it's not. That's a lot of money. And that's happened multiple times. I think one thing, and this was an OPB story about the audit that sort of blew my mind, is that the city in the last fiscal year spent $63 million on technology, which I cannot wrap my brain around what could possibly cost that much money. And it's so interesting because I feel like I sort of, right now, I put everything in sort of the election perspective. And, you know, we hear a lot of candidates talking about city waste, but we hear it in terms of homelessness dollars. A lot of sort of the more progressive candidates say there's a lot of waste in the police bureau. You know, sort of the more moderate candidates will say that there's a lot of waste in like Prosper Portland in the housing bureau. And no one has ever talked about the waste in our technology services or in our software programs. You know, it's one of those things that like doesn't sound sexy because it's like, who cares about technology? But the city is spending just an enormous amount. And it sounds like some of these things are like really unnecessary or could very much be streamlined. So that's one of the stories. The second story is sort of funny and a little sad as well. It's about one of Portland's only billionaires, Tim Boyle. So he recently got a letter from the Portland Water Bureau offering him a 40% discount on his water bill for a 90-day period. This is from a city program that is supposed to basically give bill relief to the neediest Portlanders who are struggling to pay their utility bills. Obviously, Tim Boyle is not one of them. And backing up, the city, this is a program that gives water bill relief to sort of the neediest customers. And the city, since 1995, when they first implemented this program, has always fell short of giving relief to the 10,000 Portlanders. That's always been their goal.
Right.
Recently, the city council approved a $350,000 contract with an AI company.
Interesting. Technology, you're saying.
Yes, technology, yes. Everything that rise must converge. And this software program, this AI basically, is doing 2 90-day test pilots in which they sort of randomly select Portlanders to get this like discount in an attempt to see if this technology can sort of successfully and accurately weed out who the people are that actually need relief on these bills. Tim Boyle was one of the people that they randomly selected for 40% relief. So missed the mark a little bit on that one. And I think most ironically is Tim Boyle was one of Willamette Week's hydro hogs.
I loved this series. Bring it back, Sophie.
Top 10 water consumers in Portland. Tim Boyle, I think, has been on our list a number of times. So funny enough, I was the reporter who did the hydro hogs issue, which I just like. It was such a delightful thing. I just like trolled all these like millionaires in Portland, and they were so unhappy with me because I would be like wandering around the perimeter of their property. And so one thing I remember about Tim's mansion,
just the thought of you just on their property. I don't know why, but with a dipstick of some sort.
Taking iPhone photos of fountains.
I don't remember whose house this was, but like I was kind of a new reporter at the time, and so I was like trying to figure out if like, I don't know, I was a little timid, honestly. And so I remember I went to one. It was like the most amazing house that I went to, and I wish I could remember who it was. But anyways, that he was playing tennis with his wife in their personal tennis court, and there was obviously a hedge, surrounding it. And for like 10 minutes, I just like peered through a hole in the hedge, trying to figure out if I had the courage to like go through the hedge and ask him about his water consumption.
Like Homer Simpson reverse.
Like it was really that bad.
Oh my God. 2 things occurred to me. One, so if you don't know Tim Boyle, he is the CEO of the Columbia Sportswear, who will one day make me fashion rain pants. But 2, I wondered if the AI technology was looking at taxes paid. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if like for some reason they're just like, who pays the least amount of taxes? Maybe they don't have a lot of money and they just went for billionaires.
Yeah, I don't know how the software like tabulates who they believe is like a needy customer. Like, I don't know if they do it based on past water bills. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Okay, back to Tim Boyle real quick. So when I was doing 2021 Water Hogs, like his mansion in the West Hills is basically like encased by rhododendron bushes, like these insanely large rhododendron bushes. And then I like walked along the road a little bit I didn't go into his home. I went into his driveway and then turned around because I got freaked out.
You got freaked out. Okay.
I got freaked out. He probably got freaked out too.
Just imagine, they're like,
we're both like deer in the headlights when we see each other. Anyways, use less water.
Okay. What I'm hearing is that perhaps the Water Bureau should type into their AI your water hog series, and then maybe just go, not these people.
Please leave out Tim Boyle.
Or they should just change the glitch. It should be like, oh, your bill went up by 40%.
Yeah.
Sophie, on the city audit, though, I want to make sure I'm understanding. You mentioned that this duplicative spending is something that the city's probably going to fix. Is the idea that, like, when we have a city manager overseeing all of this, that they'll be in charge of being like, wait, we already billed for this, and like vetoing the second expense?
Yeah, I think that's the hope. I don't think we know for sure that that's going to happen. But right now, a lot of why this duplicative spending is happening is because bureaus independently and their directors are choosing technology programs without really coordinating with each other. Like there's not lines of communication between them. And so separate bureaus are basically employing the same types of software to do the same thing. I think the hope is that when we have a professional city administrator, since they're the sort of the one person at the top overseeing all city functions, that like all of these contracts will basically flow through that one system rather than being sort of disparate in different bureaus.
Unless they really like AI, unless the city manager is like an AI true believer.
Let's try 4 different programs that do the same thing.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, thank you for that very disappointing look into our current form of government. And also for revisiting the Hydro Hog story, because it is a classic. Well, let's take another break here. And when we return, more headlines of the week. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's early November, a month that's traditionally all about gratitude. So I wanted to take a moment to, thank ourselves, not only for making it through another year, but for trying our best in a crazy, crazy world. And we all know it isn't easy. Plus, with the incoming holiday season, it's just gonna get harder. But one of the ways people are finding relief is through talk therapy. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and empowering you to be the best version of yourself, not only for others like coworkers, friends, and family, but for yourself. Think of it as a great way to say thank you to yourself. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/citycast today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/citycast. Time is running out to cast your vote in Portland's first ranked choice elections. And no pressure, but this might be one of our most consequential local elections in years, if not decades. So if you need help navigating your ballot or learning more about who's on it, City Club of Portland has you covered. Visit pdxcityclub.org to watch debates on top races like Portland Mayor and Multnomah County Commissioner. You can also read interviews with over 50 candidates for Portland City Council. While you're there, consider supporting a stronger democracy by becoming a City Club member. That's pdxcityclub.org for everything you need to make an informed vote by 8 p.m. on November 5th. So I'm looking at an Oregonian article written by Maxine Bernstein on Tuesday. She reported that Portland jails are nearing capacity. I found this interesting because of all our recent laws enabling more incarceration. The fact that, John, you just noted that people are worried that there might be some protests, some possible more incarcerations. And I wondered if this was an indication that we were headed to an unsustainable path in combating addiction and homelessness. Just a question I'm asking. So here's what we know. Multnomah County's 2 jails are nearing capacity. There's one downtown and there's one in Northeast. The one in Northeast has already reached 92% capacity this Sunday. Currently, there are only 1,130 beds funded for the fiscal year. And on Sunday, that population bumped up to 1,043 prisoners. And I do want to just note that it's not about capacity in the jail of like actual beds. It's people being able to watch those beds. So it's more of a people power capacity than space. So Sheriff Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell says if the jail reaches 95% capacity, that would trigger prison releases based on their risk assessment score. The jail system hasn't been at capacity since before the pandemic, meaning this has been an issue. This isn't like something new that happened. We blame a lot of stuff on the pandemic and we're just like, well, how would we have known? It's like, we had known, we have known.
Yeah.
So Oregon U.S. Attorney Natalie K. White astutely pointed out that we are going to be way over 95 capacity if next week's elections results, if it brings protest. So everyone's just bracing for the release of prisoners. And the U.S. attorney was like, well, can we just do more overtime with your staff? And the sheriff was like, no, we're tapped out. And of course, people are just like, well, why didn't you raise the flag, dude? And she was just like, I have been, So what I found a little alarming is that County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson, or JVP, gave a very classic non-response response when asked. Here's her quote: jail capacity fluctuates over time, and we are ready for whatever transpires. which is clear that they're not.
Doesn't mean that we're going to do anything about it, but we're ready.
Exactly. And she continued with more of nothing with the roadmap that we've built is designed to improve Multnomah Sheriff County's office hiring processes and make sure all of our facilities, including corrections, have appropriate staffing levels to meet our community's needs. MCSO's leadership, including the sheriff, are fully engaged in making these improvements to the process. What the fuck was just said? I'm being honest.
I don't know.
Like, what did she just say?
We need an interpreter.
Okay. Also, it was confirmed that what's largely driving the increased jail population are more people held waiting for trial on crimes such as drug distribution. So that was like something that I was like, is this because? And they're just like, yeah, it is. So those numbers doubled from 132 in February 2023 to 262 this month, according to the sheriff's office, because as was expected, when House Bill 4002 went into effect this summer and it rolled back portions of Measure 110, they've had to increase holds. But though bookings have very much increased over the last 10 months, they're still about 25% lower than the monthly average before the pandemic. So that means that things were better managed before the pandemic is all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say about that. Meaning this appears to be a capacity issue on many levels, not like an inmates issue, like, oh, we have so much crime now. It's like, no.
Okay, here's like the crazy thing for me. It's like, you're right. This is not a new issue. Like, do you remember that we built an entire new jail and never used it? You know, back in the 90s, we funded the creation of Wapato, which is a jail in North Portland, Claudia, that was never opened because they felt like they couldn't get the money to operate it, right? So they spent $58 million building this new jail, and then it just never functioned. Today, it is serving as a homeless shelter.
Good. We need one.
Its own fucking bag of worms of being like, yeah, let's put the homeless people in the like reconstituted jail, which is gross.
But
yeah,
but I do want to say that I went to Evergreen and that was built as a jail, and I learned in a jail environment. I'm not joking. You built a jail in Olympia, didn't have the funding for it, and then a bunch of hippies were like, "We want to start a school, man," and they're just like, "All right, here you go." And I'm just saying, it happens in America. It happens.
We had to use it for something.
It's either going to be a jail or a mall walk. They had to decide one or the other.
Oh my God. I also do want to say that this is the most freaking Portland thing that they would name a jail an indigenous word for potato, basically.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's like the potato jail, Wapato.
The potato jail.
We're standing on
your land acknowledgement for the jail.
But still, I do want to also just throw it out there that Multnomah County Circuit Court Chief and Criminal Judge Michael A. Greenlick said that he anticipates even more people will be held in jail pending trial. He was just like, let's look at the available number of, defense attorneys. Like, let's look at these defense lawyers. So he, this Monday, he received an email saying that there's a lack of deputies to transport people to the courts, meaning that the cases would need to be reset and people would have to sit in jail even longer. And like, how fucked that the sheriff's office can't even transport inmates to their trials. So defense lawyers have also reported it's been harder to visit clients at the Northeast Portland Inverness Jail or speak by phone with their clients in the downtown jail due to the short staffing. So this prolongs trials since lawyers aren't able to speak with their clients, and we don't have enough defense lawyers. So all of this is kind of gunking up. And in turn, of course, that exacerbates the state's shortage of public defense lawyers that are available to take these cases because they're spending way longer on current cases and can't take new ones. And it's just a clear example of how the failing of a county level government can somehow clog all its way back up and affect a state level governance, you know? I don't know how you do that, but it's happening. So local elections matter is what I'm saying, people. Yeah. Again, I state, this isn't a room issue. This is a capacity of people power issue. There just aren't enough staff to work in these jails. Yeah. So that's why they're not able to put more inmates in there. I just don't want another, I don't know, what's another indigenous word for fruit of some sort. I don't want another whatever, Wapato the second that I end up going to grad school in.
Indigenous fruit. I got it. Okay. It took me a minute to figure out where you were going there.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me and going through over these headlines. I'm actually kind of worked up. It's rare that at the end of a Friday Roundup, I'm upset. I'm just so bad right now. We try to end on like a more chill one, and we just, because it was you, Sophie, we're just like, we're not going to have a more chill one, are we? It's just going to be nonstop city incompetence.
Not her again.
Isn't it? Thank you so much, you guys, for hanging out with me. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Go Dodgers.
Thanks, Claudia.
Thanks, Claudia.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our executive producer is John Notarianni. Our producers this week were Julia Fiaioni and Francisco Kilgore. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, with contributions from Natalia Aldana. And our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Steven Drizos. Additional music by Epidemic Sound and All the Kimonos. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.